What is a rent agreement? A rent agreement in India is a legal contract between a landlord and a tenant that defines the terms and conditions of a rental arrangement. Basically, it lists down all the terms between the landlord and the tenant. It is governed by Rent Control Act 1972. It is applicable when rent is above 3,500 rupees. Now, firstly, let's see the important steps to take before choosing the right property for rent. One can select properties on portals like PropertyWala.com and connect with the landlord or brokers. Determine your budget and research the area. Visit the property. It's important to visit the property before signing an agreement. Ask to see the rental unit and make sure that the amenities and features advertised match what's actually available. Take pictures and videos of the property so you can remember what you saw later. Negotiation can be done with the broker or landlord. The next step is to ensure the person you are dealing finally with is the owner, landlord, or authorized by the landlord. Then the landlord does the tenant's verification, like the police verification, and collects a copy of his or her ID proof. This sometimes is done after signing the rent agreement as well. A landlord should also check the rent paying capacity of the tenant. It means that the tenant is capable of paying or not. A landlord also ensures the tenant's family background, which means tenant type. For example, the tenant has a family or is a bachelor. Then, the next important point is to draft a rent agreement of 11 months. In case the rent agreement is of 12 months or more, one must get it registered in the sub-registrar's office. Both the tenant and the landlord sign the agreement along with the signatures of two more witnesses. Then both the owner and tenant pay brokerage if the services of a broker are taken. One can negotiate the brokerage with the broker in advance only. Generally, the brokerage is 1 month's rent, but many times it can be negotiated to 15 days as well. Terms and clauses in the rent agreement. Date of execution of rent agreement. Details of owner, landlord, and tenant like name, permanent address, and mobile number. Description of the property like the property address, area, rooms, washrooms, and balconies. Also, it mentions the fittings and fixtures like the number of fans, lights, etc. It can be put in an annexure. Period of lease and by which date the rent will be paid. The agreement should outline the frequency and amount of rent payments to be made. The tenant must pay a security deposit to the landlord when signing the agreement. This deposit is refundable at the end of the tenancy, less any deductions for damages or overdue rent. In states like Delhi, Gurgaon, and Noida, security is generally 2 months' rent. In some states like Mumbai and Chennai, it can be as high as 10 months. Then there are maintenance charges, sometimes included in rent and sometimes not. Utility bills like water and electricity are paid by whom should also be mentioned. The property taxes are the landlord's responsibility only, which should be included in the rent agreement. The lessor shall provide rent receipts so that the tenant can take a claim. Delay penalty, if any, must be mentioned in the agreement. Renewal percentage increase of rent next year should also be mentioned, which is generally 10%. If the market rate increases or decreases, then the rent agreement can be renegotiated. Date of physical possession of the property. The termination clause in the rent agreement must be disclosed. Notice period and lock-in period must be listed. The property used by the tenant is for what purpose, and that the tenant cannot sublet the property. Alterations in the property without the permission of the landlord cannot be done. Property condition and maintenance. Small minor maintenance are generally done by the tenant. Major repairs shall be done by the landlord.